Okay, student, this is in this video I'm going to explain the solution for assignment 1. So you're supposed to create an array of list objects and insert the elements to them, the integers to them at index 0, and then print each of those lists and then delete them. So I gave you the code up to this point where you input the values for the number of lists, size of each list, and the maximum value for any integer in that list. So I added comment statements in the code, and you're supposed to write the statements corresponding to each of those comments, and that will really take care of what you're supposed to do for this assignment. So you're required to create a list, an array of num lists, each of list size. So the first thing you have to do is create an array of list objects. So this statement will do this. So this new list of num lists is going to create an array of list objects, and it's going to be pointed by the list array. Okay, so list array is going to be a pointer to that, and we did something similar to this in the slide. So let me show that. Okay, so in this case there are 4 list objects. So this is an array of list objects, and list array is a pointer that stores the base address, the starting address of this array. And then we have to go through each of those list objects and set them up. Now we could not call this constructor that takes in the size of the list and initializes the member variables of this list object, because we created an array of list objects. Okay, so we are not able to set the values of member variables right away, and that's why I have asked you to set it up here, where I also provided you the setup function that does things the same as the constructor. So since we could not call the constructor here, we can call the setup function that does everything same as the constructor. So you can call that function, set the values for the max size, create an array of list objects, each of size max size. Okay, so this is an array, so that means where is that slide here? Okay, so the max size will be set to whatever the value for size you're passing, say 10, and you're creating an array of integers. Okay, so you're creating an array of integers. How many integers, how many blocks, how many integers you want to store, that is max size. So it's a block of 10 integers. And then end of array is initialized to -1 because we have not yet filled up any of the array. So this is to be done for each list object. Okay, so that's why we're going to go through a loop. So this loop is based on the number of lists you want to create. So that's what is specified as num lists. So you can access each of those list objects by using the list array, the array pointer name, and then pass the list index, and then call the member function setup using the dot operator, and then you can set it up. So when we do that, we have, this is how it is. So there are 4 list objects, and the list array can be used to access any of those list objects, and the corresponding index, and then for each of those list objects you have now the member variables set up and the array created. So the arrays for each of the list objects could be starting from some address, and they need not be continuous addresses. So the first array could start, say, at 1000. You have for if max size is 10, you have the space for 10 integers, and then the second array The second list object here could start at some address at 2000 and you have the block there and so on. So now it's the next step is to fill up each of those arrays for each of those lists. So that means you have to run nested loop. The outer loop will run based on the number of elements in the list array. So that's what I'm doing here. For list index equals 0, list index less than num list, and increment list index as we go through this outer loop. And then within the outer loop, inside the outer loop, you have to run a loop to fill up the array. So index equals 0, index less than list size, which is the the number of elements you want to fill up. And then remember, we want to fill in the list at a specific index in the array. So if you want to fill up this list, this is list array of 0, this list is list array of 1, this list is list array of 2, this is list array of 3. So you have to access based on the list index. So list array of list index, and each is the list object, so you have to use the dot operator. And on that list object, you're calling the insert at index function. You want to insert each of those integers that you want to insert at index 0. So irrespective of, so this loop variable is just to keep track of the number of elements you want to insert. You're not really inserting at that specific index. You're always inserting at index 0 every element. And then this is the random number generation process. You generate a random number and you can pass it right away as the argument to this insert at index function, and that will the insert at index function will be called and it will take care of inserting at index 0. Okay, and you want to insert this many number of elements. So whenever there's a need for resizing, when the number of elements in the list is exceeding the max size, it will, the array will be doubled and so on. So in the insert at index will take care of all those things. You don't need to change anything. Okay, and then you can run a for loop to print the contents of each of those list objects. So again, you want to print the contents of each of the list objects. So that means the loop should run based on the number of lists you have, or the number of list objects you have. So you have to access list array of list index as we did here, and there's a print list function I have provided for you to print the contents of the any particular list. So there you have to go through from index equals 0 to index that's equal to end of array and print the contents of that array for that list object, and do that for every list object. And then we want to delete the space. So there are two things we have done here. We have allocated the space for each list object, and for each list object you also have allocated the block of integers, the array. So we'll first clear this one, the block of integers. So that's why I go through another loop, and on each of the list objects I'm calling a delete list function, and the delete list function does simply deleting the array. So once you do that for all the list objects, this space is going to be cleared, but this space is still there for the list array. So now we want to clear that. So we can call, after you're done with this for loop for deleting all those arrays there, we can then call delete on the list array, this the pointer to the list array, and that will delete this block that you have allocated for each list object. Okay, and that will take care of everything, right? So I'm not going to post the solution, but I went through this as a video, and I'll be posting it, so you can go through again this video and try to, I encourage you to type the code, the student version file have provided, and get it running. Okay, so this is the best way to get to know how to do this assignment, and get used to all this programming with the list arrays and stuff. Okay, all right. Okay, if you have any questions on any of this stuff, let me know, or ask the TAs. We'll be glad to help you.